Hello and welcome to the New World Review, your source for everything anime and manga, and today it's time to talk about nen. Useful nen, that is, in the world of Hunter x Hunter. And we're doing this because when it comes to nen, or I suppose more accurately Hatsu or nen abilities, there is a lot of focus on power. Who has the most powerful Hatsu to wield in nen combat? But fighting really is only one aspect of life, a pretty big aspect I will admit in any given shonen series, but it leaves so many fantastic abilities completely underexplored. So here we are today to recognize not the most powerful but the most useful abilities that would completely revolutionize life as we know it, which, you know, as nice as the 100 type Guanyin Bodhisattva is, it has fairly limited applications for your day-to-day person, especially if you haven't trained in the mountains for like a decade. And also, before we begin, this video is sponsored by the Anime Collective, who make all sorts of fun anime-related clothing to proudly display in public. They have an incredible range of not only Hunter x Hunter based merch, but also a whole ton of other series, including One Piece, Naruto, JoJo, and most likely whatever you want. There's a link in the description below with a 10% discount code, which is great because worldwide shipping is also available, and they have sizes up to 5XL, along with plenty of reviews and testimonials to peruse. So instead of just sitting there likely naked as per usual, go and clad yourself in some of this fine streetwear. But for now, let's get into some incredibly useful nen abilities, starting with number 10, Perfect Plan. Kicking us off, we have one of my favorite Chimera ants, Meliaron, and his absolutely insane ability to turn invisible. In fact, it actually goes quite a bit beyond that. As a chameleon-esque Ant-Man, Meliaron actually came equipped with the natural ability to access invisibility prior to the advent of nen within the colony. And once Meliaron was, rather brutally, initiated into the world of nen, Perfect Plan was developed, which makes Meliaron completely undetectable by almost any measure, which includes sight, obviously, but also hearing, touch, or any kind of extrasensory ability. This includes N, by the way, which means that even the greatest of nen users would not be able to counter your effective removal from existence. The downsides are this ability can only be performed for as long as the user can hold their breath, and actually there is one form of detection, which is via smell. So it's not quite a perfect plan, but it's pretty damn close. And this sort of advanced invisibility would be pretty ridiculously useful, as we have seen in the series, but it would also have a limitless number of real-world applications as well. Certainly an ability I would have my eye on, as well as number 9, 14 Devils. Heading to the realm of Greed Island now, it's very hard to deny anything Razor related a spot on most lists, but 14 Devils is probably his more underrated ability, because Razor is best known as the poster boy of emission, throwing aura balls and investing his aura into the emissive mechanics of Greed Island. However, the fact that he can just create 8 nen beast servants to do his bidding at any given time is also amazingly useful. I mean, just imagine if you could do something similar. It would make any task requiring labor much easier because you function as your own crew, and you could even order them to do more menial tasks like clean the house because, you know, if they can play dodgeball, then they can use a vacuum. And if you do find yourself in a situation where you need a bit of a power boost, well, these nen beasts can combine together to form stronger beings, capable of assisting you in most of life's scenarios. It's just highly overlooked because all we've really seen Razor use them for is some good old dodgeball, and because Razor himself is such an imposing figure. But don't underestimate the 14 Devils. I don't think a single person would be complaining with access to this ability. And hopefully they wouldn't be complaining with number 8, Machi's Threads. Because it really doesn't matter what series or power system we're talking about, someone with the ability to generate and manipulate strings is always going to be supremely overpowered, and Machi is no exception. In fact, in the case of Machi's Threads, hers are a step above most, as they are seemingly completely unable to be severed or cut in any way. Well, provided they're used properly, as their durability is said to equate to a 1 meter strand being capable of lifting 1 ton of weight. So already I suppose the threads are useful for moving things, but in addition to that, they can also be used in the classical puppeteering way to take control of people, or they can even be used as a mechanism of healing. In fact, especially healing, because via transmutation, Machi's strings possess some sort of innate rejuvenation qualities. But you can also do things like tracking the movement of targets by attaching a super long strand to them, because it is implied that the length of these strings are essentially limitless, with Machi claiming that she could create one as long as the Earth's diameter, although it would be rather weak as a result, like cotton, so very easily severed. But in conclusion, strings are good. But do you know what else is good? Poetry. And that is exactly what we have here in number 7 with Great Haiku. So there are times in this series where I really think Togashi doesn't quite realize what he's created, and Great Haiku is one of those instances. This ability, allegedly, has the power to create quite literally anything. All you need to do is write it on a piece of paper and bam, it becomes real. The problem is you do need to write it in the form of a haiku, and as a secondary problem, you can't even phone it in either. The haiku needs to be well written, because if it's a bad poem, then then the generated ability will be significantly weakened. And that's quite problematic for Basho because he's not the greatest of poets, but the Hatsu itself is still astounding, and even in the hands of a poor writer, it is completely life-changing. You might have to work that little bit harder, but I'll say it again, whatever you write becomes real. It's one of those abilities that has quite literally limitless applications. It is restricted only by the creativity of the user, both in terms of language mastery and desires to bring things into reality. Were it not for those factors, Great Haiku would be an easy number 1, but because it is slightly difficult to wield, it will have to settle for number 7. And as for number 6, we now have Parallel Future. So this one might be new for those of you who have not read the manga, but it is a pretty cool power held by the terrifying 4th Prince Tsoradnik. And if you're a JoJo fan, this ability is actually very easy to explain. I have 2 words for you: King Crimson. There are differences between the two, and Parallel Future is a more underpowered version, but they are strikingly similar to the point where Togashi almost certainly just took the idea and decided to explain it using his own rules. But in very basic terms, when Tsoradnik enters a state of Zetsu, he is then able to receive a vision of 10 seconds into the future. This vision occurs instantly with no time having passed in reality. However, if he exceeds that 10 seconds, then time in reality begins moving forward, with Tsoradnik perpetually looking 10 seconds into the future, hence the name Parallel Future. And it's on this list because even if it's only 10 seconds, any brand of future sight is generally pretty amazing. There are situations where it could save your life, or even situations where it could save you mild embarrassment in public. There is no situation where I will ever argue with being able to see into the future, which leads us quite nicely into number 5, lovely Ghostwriter. And now we are taking future sight to a whole new level, except in the interest of balance, we do of course have far more restrictions. But the great advantage of this ability is that it can predict a person's future roughly a month in advance. However, it does so via poetry, another shockingly powerful poetry-based Hatsu. So here's the thing, after having lovely Ghostwriter used on you, you will see a roadmap of your next month or so, but it will be up to you to interpret the meaning of the metaphoric language, which if you are successful can be extraordinarily beneficial. But it can also be quite tricky, and even the sharp minds of the Phantom Troupe were unable to completely understand their own fortunes until the events themselves were well into motion. Another problem is that the user of lovely Ghostwriter can't predict their own future, so that does kind of suck, but this power would make you an indispensable asset to the world. You would become a very rich person very quickly, much like Neon's father. And as I said before, I will never complain with any ability to see into the future, but let's get well away from this topic now with number 4, and it is going to be Rider's High. One of the most, frankly, ridiculous looking abilities in Hunter x Hunter, and yet one of the most useful, because it fulfills the very basic need of transport. This allows Subonnet to transform into a variety of vehicles, 2 of which we've seen are a motorcycle and a glider. Pretty amazing, yeah? There is one problem though, being that this power cannot be used without a rider, because the vehicles themselves use the aura of the rider as fuel. So it does require some combination maneuvers, but it is still pretty damn incredible. And this is something that I talk a lot about in One Piece videos on my other channel, but never underestimate the basic power of flight, especially when we're talking about utility. No, Rider's High is not the most powerful ability by any stretch of the imagination, but it is certainly one of the most useful. Although perhaps not quite as useful as number 3, which will be Bungee Gum, because being able to command the properties of both rubber and gum still remains one of the most versatile powers that we have ever encountered in the series. And whilst Hisoka mainly uses it for combat, it has a pretty wide range of basic applications. Even if you are the most lazy, non-combative couch pheasant, you could use Bungee Gum to just grab things and bring them to you rather than get up. And if you were a more active Bungee Gum user, then this is an easy solution to Spider-Maning your way around a city. And if you are ever in any kind of trouble, then Bungee Gum also acts as an ultimate candy-based unbreakable shield. It's another one of those Hatsu that really is only limited by imagination, and I quite frankly do not possess the mind to pursue Bungee Gum to its pinnacle, but I do recognize the potential that exists within it. Still, something that intrigues me more is number 2, Hide and Seek. Because from the moment Nov first demonstrated this ability, I knew it would be one of my favorite things that this series would have to offer. The power to essentially create a pocket dimension in which you can slip easily in and out of at your convenience is one of the most appealing thoughts I could ever have. Plus, the potential for storage, transportation, and almost effective teleportation is just unbelievable. Especially because it doesn't seem to come with many conditions or restrictions, which is very rare for such a powerful ability like this, and it really would speak to Nov's almost certainly established astounding raw ore output. It is undeniably useful, but not quite what I would call the most useful. Before we get into that though, I do want to address something that will inevitably come up in the comments, which is Skill Hunter. This ability is not going to be featured on this list. Many people will probably try to make the argument that the ability to take other abilities is both the most powerful and most useful by default, and they would be right if it were not for just how difficult Skill Hunter is to activate. Satisfying the slew of conditions required to take an ability with Skill Hunter almost certainly makes it entirely useless to anybody who isn't a mastermind of Chrollo level. It just cannot be used by an everyday person, and to the extent that it maybe could, it would not be able to capture anything but abilities from very, very low level and inexperienced Nen users. Which, why do we even want those? It's just too difficult to make work, and that's why we're not even coming close to considering it. But with that said, let's move on to our ultimate number 1, which will be magical spa services. And just stay with me here. Bisky is an insane character, most often remembered for her potent power and body transformation Hatsu, but very few people dwell on magical spa services, which amongst other things has been said to relieve fatigue, burn excess fat, or even cure arthritis. All via being able to create a lovely masseuse named Cookie and some specially transmuted lotion. Although one of the craziest benefits is a specific massage known as the piano massage, which will make 30 minutes of sleep the equivalent of 8 hours. And with that alone, this ability would basically allow you to live twice as much life as anyone else, because you'd really only need half an hour of sleep every now and then. But of course it does have the other aforementioned longevity effects as well, making this far and away the most useful Hatsu in the series in my opinion. I honestly actually don't think that any of the others even come close. They're all nice for basic pieces of fun utility, but magical spa services will ensure that you live a long, infinitely productive, and profoundly relaxed life. And there is nothing more useful than that. But what do you guys think? Please do leave your thoughts in the comments below, or even join my Discord server. And if you're keen for some more Hunter x Hunter content, then please do go and check out some of my other videos, or even subscribe to the channel for regular Hunter x Hunter glory delivered straight into your YouTube feed. But for now, this has been the New World Review, and I'll see you next time.